welcome to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
And I'm Marcia Parker.
And today we're doing our spoiler of The Raven. Caw, caw, caw.
Sourpuss.
So, Marcia, what do you want to spoil for this episode?
Okay, let's start with the first one because it was one of their cooler kills. There's screens in this apartment building, and the cops are following the screens like everybody's going crazy. Like, what's going on? This woman's screaming. They get to the door, and then they hear someone lock the door. And so they're like, break down the door. So they break down the door, and they don't see anybody except for this, like, dead body on the floor. The girl's dead. And they're like, what the heck? Check the windows. The windows are bolted. Like, where did the guy go? They open up, like, a closet door thinking he was there, and nobody. And they're like, how did it get out? Like, we heard the door lock, like,
and the window's nailed
in here.
And,
yeah. And then they look in the fireplace, and they see, like, the soot coming down just a little bit, and they're like, shit, is it Santa Claus? You know, and they're like, oh man.
I think someone actually said that.
Did they?
No.
They're like, oh my god, he's up in there, and then they get ready to shoot, thinking he's gonna come back down. I don't know, and a hand falls.
A bloody hand just drops out.
Yeah, it was pretty fucking awesome. They're like, what the fuck? This is so weird. So then Luke Evans shows up, Mr. Awesome Detective, and he's looking around. He's all like, this seems really familiar to me. And he walks over to the window, and he's looking at the nail, and he clicks it, and it just springs open.
It's a little secret part of the window that, just drops it right open
and he's
real
like,
quick.
what the hell? Like, I checked it. It was nailed. Like, how did you know it was there? And he goes, this seems really familiar to me. I can't quite place it. But they soon do. They figured, oh, yeah, this is how
he gets onto the fact that it's a series of murders based on Poe's writings.
Right.
And moving on to the next one, actually, is there's a man that is revealed to be tied to a table, and then the killer starts a mechanism that has a massive counterweight at the top, and then it drops down, and it's, of course, the pendulum from The Pit and the Pendulum, where it's a gigantic blade that is swinging over the top of the stomach of the guy that's attached to the table, and every certain number of swings, it drops down a little bit lower, and then drops down a little bit lower. And basically, the man is begging for his life, while the killer is just, of course, watching from the rafters. To no avail, of course, and eventually the thing slices through the top of the belly. But what I liked about it was that it didn't stop there. The gore kept coming. It came back, and it slices halfway through the belly, and then 3/4 of the way through the belly. And then the last one, it slices all the way through and gets caught in the spine. And just stops midway, right halfway through the dude. And you're just like,
so cool.
Oh, wow.
It was a really cool kill.
Yeah, it was, as far as, horror movie kills go, it was gory, it was awesome and inevitable, so tense and all this stuff. It was really good.
I kind of like how when Edgar saw it, he was kind of intrigued by, like, wow, so this is what it would really look like.
Yeah, he's like, he says, the counterweight is bigger than I imagined. Like, he's like, someone had to actually work out the physics of a massive pendulum.
And at that time, they were kind of like, well, is this Edgar Allan Poe? Like, is he trying to make a comeback by making his kills a reality? But, and it really was one of his enemies over at the newspaper.
Correct.
And so
not only it wasn't really an enemy. He had he was this was a newspaper that was printing all of his stories, and it was actually the typesetter. So it was the editor would read the story and say, okay, print this, come over here, and he would call the typesetter, and the typesetter would come and read it and then put it on the typing for the newspaper to come out with Poe's stories. And so the typesetter was actually Poe's biggest fan, and he liked it so much that when Poe fell off of writing, he went a little crazy, he even says. And so he decided to start killing people in accordance with Poe in order to get Poe writing again.
Oh, okay.
And ultimately, that's why Poe writes his what ends up being his last piece, which leads us to the final spoiler of kind of what ends up happening and why does Poe end up dead. Is that in his last story, his girlfriend has not been returned. They haven't figured out where she is, and the killer is not cooperating. So Poe's last story says, "I offer life for life."
Right. He just like, I'm gonna give him what he wants. Like I'm gonna offer myself up to him, and he takes the deal. He shows up. He's like, let's do this.
He shows up he figures out ultimately who the person is, and he goes back to the newspaper. And he tries to confront the editor because he thinks it's the editor, and this is also a cool makeup effect.
Well, because he realized it was somebody from the newspaper because they responded before it was ever released.
Right. He got a note on his doorstep about the article before the paper had even been printed yet.
Yeah.
So he figured it out. He figured it was his editor, though.
Yeah.
He goes back to the office, and when he finds the editor not only has his wrists been cut, but basically this entire chunk of his wrists are gone. Like someone sawed all the way through except for a tiny bit of the flesh left on each wrist. It was like just making sure that he really bleeds out. It was over the top, but it was really an effective visual. So then the typesetter comes forward and admits it and basically says, Mr. Poe, I was bawling like a little kid when I read your piece, but ultimately it's a fitting way to end. And he gives Poe a vial of poison, and he says, if you drink this, then you can save your girl, kind of thing. And so Poe drinks it and figures out the last of the guy's clues, and
she was like right there the whole time.
Yeah, inside the basically under the floorboards at the newspaper the whole time. But he successfully rescues her, but unfortunately, it's too late for him.
Yeah, and this part is pretty cool because the typesetter we haven't really mentioned, but the typesetter's name is Reynolds.
Right.
And if you've ever heard of the many rumors surrounding Poe's death, they say that he was on the bench saying Reynolds, and so they really clever way of tying it in to the mystery of the actual Poe's death to the Poe's death in the movie is by making the killer Reynolds, and that message actually gets out to the cop Luke Evans and Detective Fields, and he's getting away, and
he ends up tracking him down. The last scene of the movie is Reynolds getting off of the train in Paris,
thinking he's gotten away.
Not only thinking he's gotten away, but he actually tells Poe, now that Poe is dying, he's like, I have my eye on a new writer. There's this young man named Jules Verne in France who I'm interested to go look at. So he's getting off the train in Paris, seemingly to go repeat the cycle with Jules Verne that he did with Poe.
Right.
But as he gets into the carriage, Luke Evans is waiting for him and just shoots him, and then it launches into a really wacky new age credit sequence, which was strange. But the rest of the movie, all the way up until that very
really
last
awesome.
second, was really cool.
The kills were really well done all the way to the bodies, and
the movie wasn't given enough credit.
No,
a lot of people came down on it for some reason.
Well, it flew right under the radar. I remember the first time I ever watched that movie, it was kind of it was off of Netflix because it was oh, The Raven, this looks interesting. I think I've heard about this, but I never actually got to see it. And I watched it. I'm like, why haven't I seen this movie? This movie's amazing.
Yeah, it was really good. Really excellent movie. I'm glad I watched it. I was happy to rewatch it, actually. And we're happy to spread the word of the good horror movies to you guys. Either way, it's worthwhile watching, guys. Both spoiler and non-spoiler reviews, we say watch the movie.
Yes.
So thanks for watching, and remember to check out our website at www.thehorrorshowchannel.com.
And check out all of our social media works, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the good stuff.
And Poe is a very popular horror writer, you guys. Why don't you let us know who your favorite horror writer is in the comments below. Alrighty, so thanks again for watching, and remember, stay scared.